We've got a thing. LinkedIn says, okay, well, here we are. We're going live anyhow. I'm not clear if we're live or if we're now going live, but here we are. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to Next Level Live. We're so excited to have you. We're so excited to have you with us, Q. Thank you for tuning in, everyone. Each week, we're bringing you live interviews with powerful leaders that will inspire you to reaching your next level in life. And this evening, we have a very special man with us, Quddus, aka Q. He is an acclaimed TV host, entrepreneur, mentor. He's also a breakthrough coach, an activist, and a podcaster. Just really an all-around extraordinary, powerful, and visionary leader. So we're so lucky to have you with us. Thank you for being here tonight to talk about the secret to owning your voice. Yeah. Beautiful. How are you? How are you?
Oh, been great, actually, ironically, because we're in a pandemic and it feels like I ought to say something to the effect of I am struggling and it's hard, but I'm actually having a really great year personally, but obviously the macro level is really disturbing to see. And obviously I've felt really inspired to respond to things like George Floyd passing in Minneapolis the way he did. And so been really busy with things that I didn't expect to be doing this year, but I'm certainly embracing the curveball that is 2020.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, you've been pivoting massively, right?
A lot of pivoting. Definitely no coincidence. I'm starting a program about pivoting and helping people to pivot because it's definitely been helped. It's been supported immensely by the tools that I got from trainings like Next Level. These self-development trainings that really do support and all of the aspects of life that you just can't predict. And then it becomes incumbent on each of us to figure out a way where there doesn't seem like a way. And, this past year before the pandemic, I had a personal pandemic in the way of a divorce. So there's been a lot of stuff going on. And I think that actually set me up to be able to storm a little bit more effectively because I've already been through the valley, so to speak. So, I think breakdowns do lead to breakthroughs most of the time if we're willing to look at them and do the reinvention work to get on the other side of it. So it's felt like a really great application of all of the tools that I've developed over the years this year to navigate it with somewhat of a sane mind and some effectiveness in leading.
Oh my gosh, totally. Yeah. I mean, it really feels like with your launch of your new program and what you're up to, like you're really thriving at this moment. And it's so awesome because the world needs so more of us that are just can say like, hey, it's uncomfortable, but here's what happens when you have a committed vision and you don't give in to the struggle that's so easy to give into.
Yeah. It's really something to be humbled. And then on the other side of that, really not care what I look like anymore. I mean, that's really what I think the biggest key has been. If I can point to one key is, having been through that divorce and having it be so public for our community and essentially feeling like I had egg on my face meant that essentially everything that I had propped myself up to be just kind of fell apart. And what was left was really this version of me, which is just really committed to being better in the world and supporting other people to navigate these challenges in a better way too. So there's something really freeing about a mission that is way beyond any self-interest. And I think that's where I've gotten to because I experienced what having I'll call it a bit of a projected reality that got in the way of what I really want. And now what I really want is to make a difference, to live my purpose, to live with passion and all the things that we all want. And there's nothing in the way anymore. My experience of going through the divorce basically hollowed out my ego in such a way where I really had nothing left to do on this earth but live my life because I've already been on my knees. You know what I mean? I think there's something really powerful about that.
For sure. Absolutely. I mean, yes, when you can just authentically be you and not have there need to be some like big, like it looks a certain way and it's what I constructed in my mind. It's like, okay, universe, I'm surrendering. And also it's not really about me. It's about like me being of maximum contribution. And I can also have a great time doing it.
Yeah,
Like you
100%.
enjoy your life,
No,
right?
yeah, that's it. I mean, it's interesting because this Ally Now movement that's come out of what happened to George and so many others has really been activism, and yet it hasn't felt like what activism typically gets lumped into, like this heavy load, this intense sacrifice that one must make to be an activist. That hasn't really been my experience because, again, I really have sort of let go of a lot of the architecture that I was carrying around before, this notion of being a perfectionist. Like I'm a recovering perfectionist now because I realized that got in the way. That got in the way immensely. And I think what gets in the way of activism being joyful is oftentimes this notion that there's a right way to do it. There's a
Mhm.
perfect way to do it. And what I'm realizing is that none of us really know what we're doing right now.
No.
So of course, there's a way to be curious and humble and committed, and all those things are effective when it comes to real activism. But in terms of situations like we're finding ourselves in, it really, I find it to be almost antithetical to being an activist to actually have some sort of a playbook or some notion of how it should go. Because to be an activist is actually inherently to be pushing the edge of reality as we know it, right? And so within that, there is that bridge building, which there is actually no real precedent for. I mean, there is in the way that we've seen the civil rights movement, and yet we've never seen what happened to George Floyd the way we saw it and the reaction to it the way we saw it. So therefore, whatever I might have derived from reading Martin Luther King's bio is not really applicable now. We're dealing with different tools like this, and different conversation. So a different consciousness is really required. And in that, anything that I had as an attachment has just gone really way out of the door. It's like I'm just completely just going with day to day what's wanted and needed. And it's actually really freeing. It's a really freeing experience and terrifying.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think there's a lot of things that are going on in the world that are pretty terrifying, like from global warming to, the state of politics to the Black Lives Matter. I mean, there's a lot going on in it. And I do think when you said that it's been a humbling year for you, like, wow, I am so, and I'm so clear that now more than ever is so important for us to just love and show people what that looks like. And it can be, love can show itself in many different ways. It could be like, that will not happen in my backyard, right? Like that is not okay with me. I do not stand for that. And I won't, I just know that's not happening. So, but truly that place of like, I mean, that's the beautiful part of humans, right? Is that piece where it's like, we're actually so connected with source that it's like, there's nothing else in the way. There's nothing to be inauthentic about. There's nothing to like really taint what you're saying, what you're doing. It's just like, it's this pure, like, how can I be of service? We need that.
I remember seeing that. Yeah, it's really the best place to be because then it actually brings a level of presence. When I think about, I had a lunch with a friend of mine who's very famous. This is not a name drop. This just happens to be a part of the story. But his name is Justin Baldoni. He's a really successful actor and filmmaker and an activist in his own way. And he was sitting across from me at lunch. And he said to me, I've gotten to the point now where I basically am like a feather blowing in the wind. And I ask God to be that wind. And I say, what would you have me do? Any given day, it's like, what would you have me do? And then that informs the way he listens, the way he moves through the world. And I mean, you could tell just based on the way he's lived his life that he lives by that. When there's something that calls him, he goes to it. It's a really multidisciplinary passion that I see from him because he's not going to get boxed in. He's not going to be that, pin-up actor that you can just put over there. He's going to speak on whatever his heart/God informs him to speak on. And it's been really inspiring to sit there as his friend and see him do the things he's been doing, leading men's work the way he's been leading it. He had a TED Talk at TEDx Women, and it was so powerful. He called men forward. He said, let's look at what it means to be a man. And He got millions of views, and he's an example, you know. And I think what I'm finding is the same. It's the answers, you know, the clarity, the insight, the purpose. It all comes when I surrender what I think I ought to be doing, or you know, like to be a coach now. I would have never in a million years thought I'd be coaching people when I was on TV a couple of years back. You know, it was not in the playbook, right? And sure enough, it's brought me a level of depth that I could have probably never gotten doing what I was doing and being the way I was being. So I'm just grateful for this type of work, that y'all are facilitating a next level, and that I get to facilitate as well. And it's beautiful. It's really powerful, because it, you know, it's like this quote. I'm forgetting who said it. Just insert famous philosopher. But he said essentially, an unexamined life is not worth living.
Yes.
You know, and I don't
know who it is either, but it's a good one.
Yeah, just Google it if you want to go tweet it after you hear this. But it's been really amazing to examine, you know, and there's nothing quite like a divorce or any sort of pandemic, any situation, you know, maybe somebody's listening or watching and maybe they lost their job this year, or their company went over because it's not really happening in the COVID-19 era. You know, it's all an opportunity if we look at it that way, right? If we actually say, okay, you know what? Great, I get to reinvent myself. Great, I get to reshuffle the deck, you know, and then we get to see what we're made of.
It's so true. Yeah, yes, and that's kind of also the beauty of getting older too, right? Because we have more of these like setbacks. We've got more of these like, wow, that really didn't work out the way I thought it might work out, and we're humbled, and then we're better people because of it, and we can be coaches, we can be mentors. Like, but I would love to share with some. But also, I'm going to mention we've got a couple people who are like so happy that you're here. Mary Jenkins is saying hello. Ryan Clarkson is saying hello. Stuart Krantz is saying hello. So. Yes. Also, yeah, for those of us who are watching who might not know more about you, can you give a little about your background and sort of like, because this is pretty an awesome pivot for you and an awesome transformation.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride. I mean, I remember getting my first job in television when I was 19 years old back in Canada. And that led to a job on MTV, and I got to be a VJ on MTV when it was still music videos on the air there, and I would get to introduce them and interview artists, and it was amazing opportunity. I remember, you know, hanging out with Beyoncé on an island in Belize. You know, these are experiences that I'll never forget. And of course, inevitably after 5 years of hosting that, there came a point where I felt unfulfilled and like there was no challenge, and I was starting to get really excited about acting, and I was doing acting classes, and I remember that was the first place that I experienced a emotional expression and release like I really hadn't given myself the permission to have. I think I'd been playing it cool in life. I've been really positioning myself, you know, as a VJ. I think the only prerequisite is to be cool, you know, and so all of a sudden, acting class, I got to experience an emotional depth and breadth that I hadn't really in any other area of life. I'd gone through a pretty challenging childhood. My family was well, they call it a broken family. I like to think of it as a blessing now, because it did form who I am. But you know, my parents divorced when I was 13, and you know, my father was a bit abusive, and so I remember essentially building up a calloused way in the world where, you know, my ability to be cool, have a personality, sort of kept me safe. It kept me safe. That was what I sort of subconsciously told myself. So then the walls started to chip away, you know, over the years as I was navigating the world. I essentially discovered that there were blocks in my ability to have deeper relationships, and wasn't a conscious thought, but that was what was happening, and it was getting in the way of my fullness in life. And so, you know, beyond the lights and cameras, I was struggling in terms of having intimate relationships with women. I would, you know, date chronically and never really settle down and commit, and I'd always kind of hit that wall after about, you know, a year being with a woman and she'd be interested in committing. I would not have the emotional capacity to go there. And so basically it came to a point where a couple of projects didn't work out. And I was sitting there with a friend of mine in my living room telling him about this last TV project that didn't work out and how this last relationship didn't work out either. And he said, well, I just did a workshop. You might want to check it out. And of course I did, because I was that desperate. And, again, it's like the beauty of being humbled and having enough breakdowns to where, one is open and actually available for an invitation like that. And so I went to this workshop series, and my life has never been the same since.
Same thing.
What's that?
Sorry, the audio is a little off.
Oh, yeah, I got a little wonky there, yeah.
So I was just saying for the community, same one that Next Level does, just out in LA.
Yeah, exactly. It's called MITT out there in LA, and some graduates from the MITT program started Next Level. Chris Hawker is one of them, and so yeah, I was really, really grateful for the opportunity. After some resistance going in the room, I had a little bit of a anxiety in the lobby as I was walking in the room, because it didn't feel like I should be there. It was like all of my ego was like flaring. It was some very, very, very modest hotel. And of course, at that point, I'd been in television. So it was like, yeah, very, very aesthetically challenging place for me to be comfortable in, and yet there was something about what was going on there that I could tell was important for me and significant. And so, I managed to get through the training by the skin of my teeth. I managed to get through the training. And then on the other side of it, I realized, wow, this is actually the depth of the human experience here. And I want to lean in for more. I want to figure out more of this and see if I can actually facilitate this, because I'm getting so much from it. And then, of course, I began my apprenticeship in this type of work and facilitating, and it's been an amazing journey. That's so
cool. That's so cool. I don't know if you know this, but you're actually like my great grand angel. Did you know that? I don't know if you knew that or not, but yeah.
I actually didn't. We haven't talked about that, but that's amazing.
Yeah, right, because you enrolled Lewis House, yes?
Yes, yeah.
And then Lewis enrolled Chris.
Everyone.
Yeah. That's you,
Lewis
right.
enrolled everyone.
Everyone, yes. Yeah, totally. And my first, I had seen you out in MITT land, right? I mean, it's a very social community. People gather often. But I don't know if you remember this either, because this was quite some time ago, but I did the relationships course.
Oh, yeah.
And you were in the relationships course as like one of the, seniors or whatever. And you stood in for my dysfunctional boyfriend at that point in time. And we had like a whole dyad where you were like standing in for Kevin, was the guy's name. And I was like, Quddus is nothing like Kevin, but here we go. There's like a similar size, But yeah, I remember that with fondness, because I was like, oh, Quddus, like what a cool guy. It's like, he's graduated, but he's still back. He's in service. Like, you were definitely like a mover and shaker out there.
Well, I love the work. I love the work so much. It did a lot for me. I mean, I remember coming off of the leadership training that I was a participant in, and I started the training really clear that I wanted to get the type of show that would have me having the conversations that I wanted to have and supporting in whatever way I could with media. And so the fact that I was able to achieve the goal within that leadership training and also get into another relationship that was incredible. And I mean, in every way it affected and impacted my life. And so I just got to that point where I realized, well, hold on, if my whole MO for being a TV host was to make a difference, and yet here I am in a different form of conversation, facilitating a different type of conversation, having massive impact, just it felt and looked different. And so I thought, wow, let me try this direct impact thing for a while, and really be with people and not just talk to them through a camera. And
like, I'm here and you're down there. Yes.
Yeah. And honestly, I mean, like literally the show that I hosted on MTV, that was the setup of the studio. Our studio was on the second floor in Times Square, and we looked over masses of people that were looking up at us like, oh my God, you know, and it was very disconnected for me as someone who is a people person to always be looking through glass and looking down at people. And of course I did man on the street stuff, and I was right there shoulder to shoulder with people. And of course there was a lot of touch points that had me feel connected, but the majority of the experience really had me feel like I was in a porcelain tower. You know, I was this sort of like famous, untouchable type. And yeah, of course, there's a lot of ways to play that game. And I realized that, you know, in this work, there is a fixed mindset, there is a flexible mindset, and a flexible mindset can make any situation whatever we want it to be. So, of course, now I'm looking at doing a show, but in a different way, and having a more deep, meaningful conversation.
Yeah, let's talk about some of your current projects, because you're up to a lot of great stuff. So, so you've got AllyNow, which is a community, and are you guys like what's occurring with the AllyNow community?
Yeah, I mean it's been really dynamic. It's been referred to as a movement. I mean, we've been looking at potentially making it somewhat of a for-profit but for-purpose kind of endeavor. Because I've done a lot of nonprofit work over the years. I work with an organization called Generosity. We built clean water wells in Haiti and Ghana and all sorts of places. And I was actually, at one point, I was on the board for a couple of years, and then the CEO had to exit, and then there was a big fundraising gap in the team. And so I actually went into the day-to-day team and became the director of partnerships to fundraise to keep the organization going. And so it was a really great experience. I talk about, you know, power of enrollment and you know, generating the types of relationships that can generate, you know, funds for that sort of endeavor. So it was a really great experience. I wouldn't do anything differently, but it certainly taught me a lot about the nonprofit space and how challenging it is to operate like that. So to constantly be fundraising as a way of operating. So we're looking at AllyNow in a very comprehensive way, and just looking at how we all gathered based on what happened to George and what's happening to a lot of Black people in America. And so now that we've gathered, you know, we've looked at, okay, well, you know, do we potentially turn into a training company that can go into all these different companies that require really great diversity and inclusion training and contribute to that space? You know, so we did a lot of landscaping and researching of the DEI space, they call it diversity, equity, and inclusion, just to see like what the needs might be, what we could actually potentially contribute to. So that's AllyNow. We've been in that exploration of what it is that we can be as a community beyond just a community, because I'm really interested in having this be something sustainable that doesn't feel like it's, you know, this pro bono thing that everyone, you know, needs to sort of sacrifice for, but rather everybody at the table also having a certain amount of monetary compensation. So AllyNow is something that will be forever evolving. You know, it could end up being a media company as well as a training company. You know, so right now it's a community.
And you're wanting to make a difference and an impact.
Exactly. And we're doing that, you know, even within the community, to get together every Thursday and have a Zoom and talk about what's going on in the world has been incredible. You know, we have these conversations that are really amazing. Sometimes it feels like group therapy. Sometimes it feels like brainstorming. You know, it's everything in between as well. So we have guests on, and so that's open for everyone. Everyone who
people join into that.
Absolutely. So if you go to AllyNow on Instagram, you can, you know, click through, join the community, and then come to a Thursday Zoom and see what the community is all about. It's been amazing. I mean, it's a lot of really amazing, loving people who are really intent on making a difference. And now we're in the planning stages of a summit for peace that we're tentatively calling it a Summit for Peace. So we're working on that, and we're hopefully going to have it up and running and able to be attended before the election, because we want to, you know, impact a lot more people coming out to vote. You know, the voter turnout, I think, is going to be a really key thing. So we're working on that as well. And so, yeah, AllyNow has been amazing. Big passion project for sure.
Beautiful. Okay, and For the Culture podcast. This is awesome. Tell us about the podcast.
So For the Culture was actually, in a sense, born from what the conversations have been at AllyNow and figuring out what does it mean to be an ally, and how can we each do our part. And in my case, you know, being somebody who's been in media, who has access to all sorts of really inspiring people to interview, I realized that I really want to profile people who are like Karamo Brown, for example, this guy who's on the Queer Eye show on Netflix, and he happens to be a friend of mine. And so we sat down to an interview. He shared a story about how he came out to his dad and what that entailed, and it was really powerful. And so it's conversations like that that are going to be for the culture, because really when I think about all the conversations we're having at AllyNow, it boils down to like essentially what is the culture that we're all contributing to? How are we creating a culture where something like a George Floyd could happen, and how do we actually reverse engineer it? How do we shift the culture such that that would never happen again? And it's through conversations, I think, primarily. Obviously policy and all of that happens, I think, as a byproduct of better conversations. So that's what we're having with for the culture, and having those inspiring stories to give us an idea of what a better world could look like.
Wow, that's so cool. Awesome. And then for those of us who might want to work with you, we've got this Breakthrough with Q program that you have that you're launching. It sounds like tomorrow it's going to be up on your website live.
Yes, we've been in the development phase, and the website has been under construction, and it's definitely going to be something to go to. I mean, as it is, you can go to the website right now and get a application button for a discovery call with me, and then we'll figure out what's the best route to go. But yeah, I'm excited to support people with all the pivoting that needs to happen. And there's also another program that I'm going to be running called Media Mastery for folks that really want to get as authentic and confident and clear in their message and their story as possible.
That's super. There's a lot of people in our community who could super benefit from that. There's a lot of people in the world, period, but people who are up to a big game that could really, really benefit from that. And so they would just book a discovery call with you to talk more about it and see if it's a good fit.
If they just go to Quddus.co, and then they'll find on the coaching page, they'll see the application for discovery call. And I'm excited. I'm excited to support folks. I mean, coaching is a real win-win. When I look at it, I don't think of it as work. For me, it's an honor to be able to steward and support someone to get to another level in their life. You know how it is. Obviously you're facilitating over the next level, and it's just the most fulfilling thing. It's I think what we all yearn for is to really be connected and to really make a difference with each other and feel that kind of fulfillment. So for me, it's almost selfish. It's like I get off on it. So yeah, I'm really excited about these programs and coaching. And I took a little break since I left my last training company, Camaretti, who is also run by my ex-wife, and obviously in the divorce, we had to parse things out, and I really wanted her to run with it and to start fresh on this side. So it's exciting to have this be the new chapter.
Yay! Beautiful. Okay, so I put the link to your coaching page in the chat so that people can directly get there, and that's going to be starting in the next couple of weeks. So this is soon. Yep. October 5th, we're getting going with the Media Mastery program, and then Breakthrough will follow a little bit after that. So I'm excited for whoever's feeling called. Oh man, awesome. Well, to work with you is going to be a pleasure. You bring so much passion. You bring so much knowledge. Like you've got like decades of experience in media and coaching and self-development, and like it's a pleasure and an honor to be here with you, and to also download some wisdom. So thank you so much for being with us. Of course. You're amazing too. It's really it's a beautiful thing that y'all have built it at Next Level. I'm really honored to be in the family in this way. Yay. Awesome. Well, thank you. Thanks so much for everybody for tuning in. Ryan, Chris Hawker was on, yes. Mary, Brooke Overly, and Stuart Krantz all were saying hi. So thank you. Thank you for watching.